Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at the alcohol-based markers that we have available for you to use. Alcohol markers are, it's like the generic name for the Copic or the Copic markers. Pretty sure I say that wrong, but what they do is you can blend with them. They have really rich color, and you can buy the generic versions for pretty cheap on Amazon. So where Copic markers are like $5 or $7 a marker, these 80 count packages that we've got are these were like $20. So they're in this nice-ish cloth case, and you have 80 colors. These actually also come with a white gel pen and a fine detail pen, which is pretty cool. Now, if you were to go ahead and buy a set, I would not necessarily recommend the Touch brand that we use. I would recommend this brand, the Ohuhu. They're better quality, and they're not, I don't know, 80 count for $20 or like 24 count of good markers for $20. So I would go with these if I bought these again. So what's nice about the alcohol markers are they are permanent ink. You get really nice color, really good solid coverage. You can blend colors with them, and we'll be looking at how to do that. One thing to be aware of with these is if you look here, you'll notice they bleed through the paper like crazy. So what I would recommend doing is I usually, whenever I'm going to be coloring with them, I'll look through my sketchbook, find a few pages that are like trash or whatever, stick them behind it, and then you won't be getting it on your next page. Now, the markers, they mostly come in two different varieties. One side is a broad tip, and one side is a fine tip. One thing to kind of be aware of with these is you want to make sure that you're really careful when you open up the fine tip side, because I've had some of these, it'll like pull this whole gray part off, and then the ink cartridge will come out. You just kind of want to be aware that that could happen, because they are permanent. It's the ink. I mean, it's not going to like spill everywhere, but if that thing comes out, you might get some spots over whatever you're working on. Some markers have a brush tip, which I would recommend personally. Just I like using brush tip pens. The markers are nice too. But yeah, so we're going to look at how to go about using these and some of my recommendations. So first off, most of these sets you'll notice have numbers on the top. This is like a code for like just kind of like the general pens. So whatever brand of pen you are using, the 63 cerulean blue should technically be the same. But that does mean that it's really easy to find which color you are working with. So I'll just start out off by using the cerulean blue, and you do need to be careful with the broad tip because it will like pull out. Sometimes if you open it up, it might be sticking out. I would just use don't push hard, but try to kind of push that back in. So you can see here, nice dark even coverage. Now that's one thing with markers. Typically I don't really teach or use or anything the Crayola markers because they're really streaky. But with the alcohol based markers, I mean, you can get such nice color very easily, and if you're not getting it easily, that means the marker is almost dead. one problem that I've run into with this particular brand, which is why they're not necessarily my favorite, is some of the markers they're just like not working out of the pack. So if you run into that, I haven't come up with a way to sort of fix that, but there is that. So kind of be aware, even though these sets are new, some of them don't work. So what is nice about these is you can actually shade with them. So if you layer up the color, you can get nice transitions from light to dark. And you can also combine different colors together. Now, this is where you're going to want to, like if you're like, man, I really like this blue, you might label that this blue is 63. And then if you want to try to fade it into a dark blue, and there is going to be a lot of layering involved, and that's why I would try to keep sort of like another piece of paper whenever you're coloring something around, so you can see not only what the color looks like, but if you're going to be blending them, you want to see how they blend together. So you can see this blends pretty well, but you kind of have to see if it's better if you put the dark color on first. If you put the lighter color, you might fade back in with the lighter color. But if you're happy with the way that looks, say, okay, that's number 70. So you'll say number 70. You'll notice with the chisel or the broad tip, I'll call it a chisel tip sometimes, depending on how you hold it, you can still get fine lines with it, or you can get really big lines. There is just a little bit of bleed on these, so kind of be aware of that. But I'm going to just kind of start off by doing a little bit of color on this picture of Ace the Duck, so you guys can kind of see how I'll go about kind of going back and forth to figuring out which colors I'd like to use and that sort of thing. So I've already established all my light and dark areas, so and his pants are blue, so I'm just gonna get to it, start working on his blue pants. Now, if you think you're going to be fading from different areas, you're just going to kind of flip back and forth, kind of like you do with the Prismacolor pencils. Really similar process of layering, mixing, and trying to figure out, what's the best combination of these materials to get your desired effects. And you want to make sure you color in the lines if that's what you're intending to do. All right, so you can see some of the shading that I'm doing here. I'm doing a horrible job coloring this, but that's fine because this is an old sketch that I wasn't using anyway. So one thing that I will say about the markers is it's really nice to have the variety you get from an 80 count, but at what point are you ever really going to be using 80 markers at a time? So that's one reason I recommend the 24 count. 24 count, that'll get you pretty much any and all colors that you need. One of my favorite sets I've bought, I think it was like 15. I found it at Marshall's for like $6, and I couldn't not buy it for that price. So you can go ahead and color his hat. I forgot that part on his hat's supposed to be red. Try to do some shading here. Try to fade to that black a little bit. Now, one thing I will say with the alcohol markers, there is a colorless blender, much like the Prismacolor, and I'm not seeing it in this pack right now. To show you guys, I think it's number 0, but I would use that with caution. Um, Whereas with the Prismacolor, it's just not something that I particularly like care for, because I feel like the I feel like you don't necessarily need that for the Prismacolor. With the alcohol markers, I've had some that I've used whenever I tried to fade colors with the Colorless Blender. Um, they ended up getting very I was fading some purple, and it went really well. It looked good, but about a month out, I looked at it and it had turned pink. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's really made me kind of second guess using the um, the blenders. All right, so see, problem. This is a brand new set of markers, and I went to open this up. This is dead. This is what a dead marker looks like. If you've not figured that out with a Sharpie, if you're not getting a solid, consistent mark on your paper, that means that marker should not be used. No, it's a little bit better on the other side, but that's too inconsistent for me to try to keep using it. So, yeah, be aware of that. That's exactly why this isn't my preferred brand of marker. See, there we go. Nice thing is, with 80 colors, if one doesn't work, you're probably going to find one pretty similar that will work. So, go ahead and start working on his jacket. You can see how well this plays with Sharpie and the Pentel brush pen. Um, I've had some that would have a little bit of bleed with certain Sharpies or brush pens. I don't really know what causes that sometimes, but what I do know is that I do like that about this set is my black marks look exactly as they should. Or at least as I intended for them to look. So, and I think on him, this is all Pentel brush pen, which was this guy. So let's just put that down that they play really well with Pentel. Now, if you are using ink and working with um, the alcohol markers, you want to make sure that you don't just do Sharpie and then just go straight into using the color on top of it, because it's not necessarily they need to dry, but they need to sit for, and dry for a minute. It's not exactly drying, but y'all know what I mean. Um, this is an older sketch. You do want to try to go a consistent direction, which is something that I'm not doing a great job of right now. Pretty much same as anything. If you go a consistent direction, your color is going to be more full. It's going to be more consistent. And it's just going to look better. So I am trying to go in as consistent of a direction as possible now. And if you do ever get smudgy over here, you just go back over it, try to keep with whatever direction you've been going. All right, let's see if I can get a little bit of shadow in here. Not necessarily a pressure thing, it's just how many passes you go over it. Throw some orange down on him. Put on his orange bill. See, little, very small amount of bleed happening right here. Don't know what's going on with that, but whenever I talk about bleed with the black, that's what I mean. It's just sort of smudging that around. So, like I said, don't know what happened there. It may be that I used a Sharpie for that line, because that is a finer line. Feet are going fine. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is the use of grays, because even though I want him to be all of these bright colors, I want to show you guys how you can tone these colors down, because these colors are bright. They are pretty loud. And if that's not what you're going for, you might be like, well, this doesn't really serve any purpose for me. But let's look at this orange, because this is a nice bright orange. Now, you can use the grays and overlap them to sort of neutralize the grays. Now, one thing that's really nice about these packs is they come with a ton of grays. This is a really big advantage over like the 24 counts, because if y'all look in here, we have a bunch of different varieties of grays. We have a warm gray 3, 6, and 9. Now, if you've ever really thought much about grays, you'll know that they come sort of in all shapes and sizes. So we have a family of blue grays, we have a family of warm grays, we also have a family of green grays. Now, and this takes a lot of brain power to focus on and try to figure out, but we're going to play around with them. So, the 3, the 6, and the 9, this is just how dark they are. So if you want like a really light, warm gray, you can have a really light, warm gray. Let's see how that looks with the orange. Oh, look, that tones it down really well without making it dark. Then, and this last one, that was the warm gray 9. So this is the warm gray 6. So you can see this is getting pretty dark. Well, I thought that was the 9. Let's double check. No. Okay, so the warm gray 9, very dark, very dark. You can see that difference there. So instead of trying to use a different color or anything to shade his feet a little bit, I'm going to get the warm gray 3 because I like the way that looks. And I'm going to just add some shadows. Make some of this look a little bit more believable. Because, you know, when you're drawing Ninja Turtles, realism's everything. And then hit his bill with a little bit of that too. And then, to try to blend it in, a little bit more. I'll go back over it with the orange, kind of layer that up. And that kind of brings some of that vibrancy back that you lose with the gray. So kind of like the Prismacolor pencils, you know, the more you layer up, the richer and the more variety you'll be able to get from your colors. If I wanted to hit the jacket with one of the grays, I could probably do that and get some nice shadows on it. It's a little bit darker. We'll go ahead and do his feathers. Let's see, which are supposed to be a yellow. Those are pretty dark yellows. Ooh, we got a lemon yellow, which is about what we need, but there we go. So on this one, you all saw the fine tip didn't work very well, but the broad tip did. So we'll go ahead, get that broad tip out. I'm going to do a base coat on the yellow, and then I'll probably try to find another color for some lowlights. All right. So I'm going to lay some more of the yellow out on here. And ooh, here's a dark yellow. Let's see how that looks. Meh. A little dark, a little orange. Melon yellow. Or is that the one I was using? Nope. That'll be good. So now I'm just going to kind of darken some of these areas up, kind of fade into some of my dark lines. That needs to be darker. Get a little bit more of that form happening. I'll go ahead and I'll hit back on that yellow, kind of blend those in a little bit more. And then I still feel like that shadow under his beak should be a little bit darker, so I'm going to play around with my warm gray. Yeah, that'll neutralize it well enough. All right, and that is a very quick intro into using the alcohol markers. I have to say, this is one of the first times I've really used this full set. They worked a lot better than I thought that they did, especially with the blending. I guess whatever colors I tried to blend the last time, they may have just not blended very well. Now, I kind of pointed out the gel pen in the Pentel video, but we'll go ahead. Let's look at this one because this just kind of came with it. So if you ever need any highlights, it's not a bad gel pen that comes in here. And if you ever need any lowlights, let's check out this little guy. Ooh. All right. So nice little fine pen. And then, is this brush or, oh, ooh, party foul. Look, that side's barely working, but we do have that nice one. So, like I said, these work well, mixed bag, but this is how you go about using the alcohol markers. Really good for areas, and you can see didn't hit my sheet back behind it very much on the blue where I really um, went dark. It did. Let's see how it did here. You know, if you've got a nice thick paper, one sheet will probably do it. I want to make sure that I don't mess up any pages in my sketchbook, so I stick with 2 or 3. So remember, these are available to you. You just have to come and pick them out. If you want to get your own set, what I recommend doing is just going on Amazon, looking up alcohol markers, and finding a set and a count that look good to you. Remember, there are brush tips, which are really nice and a little bit more expensive, but you get that instead of the broad tip. It kind of takes some practice getting used to the broad tip so that you're not just kind of um, I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, that you're able to actually like use it from all those different angles, which you're probably used to that with Sharpie. So, um, I hope this helps, and I hope that you guys get a chance and play around with the alcohol markers.